As time goes on, you get a little bit more wiser and a little bit more lonely. It might be time to face it.
It's quietly beautiful when you realise there's a through line in entities. Walk into an Apple store in 1997 and 2025 and you'll find everything has changed. And yet, nothing will have changed. When my mum's best friend visited my current city, there was a sense of lightness to it. Pleasant, but a lack of depth. I thought, she didn't even see me through 2 hours of small talk after 17 years. Which character am I to her anyway? The kid she once knew? Is there a through line like Apple that I just don't see? And what if there is and I'm just too caught up in my own head to see it? Soon enough though, after a few months had passed, I'd softened my stance and found myself thinking about that afternoon with a sense of warmth. Truth is, not every meeting needs to reveal something. Not every conversation has to carry weight. Some things only show their through line later. Once you stop demanding meaning in the moment and let things just be in their infinite variety. That's the real quiet beauty.
Pat needed an out. He got into his car late one night and devoured the white lines of the highway without looking back. The lights flashed by. On the side of the road he saw himself with his arm around a bohemian girl surrounded by mates heading towards the city skyline. Turning off the on-ramp and into Chinatown now, where he spied the same girl, this time toned down but stunning, sipping chai tea with a noticeable baby bump. Still he drove on, deep into the heart of the city, the images flashing, running into the ocean fully clothed with the city lights reflecting off the water, a raised wine glass at a wedding, a black eye out the front of a nightclub, sleeping at a mate's house on a hill overlooking the city, a man sitting in a hospital corridor. This time the man looked much older, a sense of life well lived. Pat eventually pulled up at his destination. The road had shown him 1,000 endings, but as he arrived, all he could see was a beginning.
Cats are flat out better than dogs, Madison said matter-of-factly. Here we go, Martin replied. No, seriously, cats are more nuanced. They don't love you automatically. It's an earned thing. Think about it. Madison leaned in. A dog would love you even if you were an evil dictator. We breed them this way. This is manufactured. Martin paused for some time. There was some logic here, but he knew it was one-sided. He finally said, but that's not a flaw. The experience of that dog being friendly isn't fake. And that manufactured thing, that isn't what you think. They evolved with us, and over thousands of years. A dog loving you easily doesn't make it shallow. It just means its nature is generous. Madison looked at Martin thoughtfully. Yeah, and a cat making you work for it doesn't make it any deeper either, I guess. Yeah, maybe this isn't about cats and dogs. Maybe it isn't about that at all, Martin said. A beat passed before Madison replied with, yeah, it really is more a reflection on ourselves, isn't it? What you consider depth to be and where you can find it. Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita follows a hedonistic journalist, Marcello, drifting through parties, fame, and beautiful people while working in Rome, all while quietly asking the big questions about life, but never quite acting on them. When I first saw this movie as a kid, all I saw were adults drinking and talking. It didn't really make sense, but its style left an imprint on me. Watching it again in my young adult years, when the film had become a kind of cult cool to watch, I saw a dashing man, irresistible to women, intelligent, effortlessly cool. This was how I imagined Europe would be, a smoky haze of pleasure, booze, and conversation. Marcello was my idol. When I returned to it 10 years down the track, I saw a man cracking under the weight of endless parties. Still cool, still sharp, but strained. As a kid, I remembered him as being a little bit older. Now I felt he was old enough to have moved on from this lifestyle. Recently, I found the movie again on YouTube. This time, my jaw dropped. This was a deeply conflicted man, a man who had prioritised cheap pleasure over substance, now old enough to be asking questions that should have been answered years earlier. Marcello was a brilliant character, better than I remembered, but he was no longer my idol. Each time I watched it, I thought I was learning something new about the film. I wasn't. I was learning about where I was in my own life. Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita follows a hedonistic journalist, Marcello, drifting through farties... Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita follows a hedonistic journey. Farties. Oh, I gotta get that laugh out. And now a bit of hip hop music to stay down with the kids. This whole video is so amateurish.
Jesus can see everything. He tells me you move, by Christ, I'll beat you brainless.
Bubby, brought up for 35 years in a decaying apartment with an abusive mother, finally escapes and enters society for the first time. After a lifetime of religious control, he stumbles into a church, and here is delivered one of the most unflinching anti-religion rants ever put on screen.
Jesus can see everything I do. And he's gonna beat me brainless.
What makes this scene so striking is that this speech is delivered by the actual priest who was just playing organ epically in the church. He then takes Bubby with this dreamlike logic to a massive factory setting. And here is where the fun begins.
No one's going to help you, Bubby, because there isn't anybody out there to do it.
You can see here the transcript is pretty intense, and that's what makes it great. We are the architects of our own existence. We suddenly see this expansive universe open up, with the facade of superstition finally dropped. Bubby can see for the first time how unbelievably complex the world is. He can see that humans, like himself now, have graduated from primitive thinking to critical thinking. The political compass maps politics along two axes. Left and right describe economics, who owns what, up and down describe authority, how much control the state has. At their worst, each quadrant fails in very different ways. Three of them can become monstrous. Top left concentrates power in the name of equality. Dissent becomes treason. That's how you get figures like Stalin. Top right fuses power with nationalism and hierarchy. Order comes before humanity. At its worst, that's Hitler. Bottom right doesn't produce a single monster. It produces systems, unchecked markets, corporate power, harm without anyone technically in charge. And then there's the bottom left, my personal quadrant. Here's the thing, it doesn't produce monsters. There's no mechanism for mass evil. Its danger comes from somewhere else. Fragility, idealism without enforcement, pure ideology that collapses rather than oppresses. Individuals can live in quadrants, but societies rarely can. Society exists in a spectrum of all four forces, which is the tension that unfolds at a large scale. But if there's a moral centre, it's the bottom left, where power is questioned, not concentrated. Every other quadrant fails by amassing power. The bottom left fails by refusing so. Messy? Yes. Monstrous? No. Am I biased? Sure. We all are. But I question everything, and that's why I'm looking to each quadrant's worst qualities. It's a good place to start when pondering the big ideas in life. The Beatles are the greatest band of all time. But why? Because they have talent in their shit, supernovaed at the nexus point in pop culture and created a storyline so biblical, even religious texts struggle to compete. Their legacy is one of totality. Almost every musical idea exists somewhere within their sprawling catalogue. Their 5 greatest albums show this and trace the human condition. After the early years, Rubber Soul perfects pop, front to back, arguably the greatest album ever made to that point. So where do you go after perfection? You make another perfect pop record, but this time twist it with sounds that no one's ever heard before. Then you tear the whole thing down. Sgt. Pepper doesn't just change albums, it changes what music can be. It's the big bang of the musical universe, and that's not hyperbole. What else is there left to do? You fracture it all with the White Album. Sprawling, postmodern, a blank white cover answering Pepper's explosion of colour. And finally, with nothing left to prove, you arrive at Abbey Road. It's not experimental, it's destiny, a magnum opus. A band at the height of their powers, closing the book exactly where it had to end. The silence after someone leaves permanently is louder than any storm. You reach for them in memory, but your hands close on shadows. That is life, both blessing and ache.